We're talking with John Broyles, founding partner of Broyles Kight and Ricafort, family law practice and immigration attorneys, on the complex topic of immigration, naturalization, and citizenship in the United States. I think you mentioned earlier, I may have this incorrect, that your initial consultation is free. There is no cost attached to that. Is that correct?
Oftentimes our initial consultations are free, and what we do is we have kind of a screening procedure when a caller calls the firm based upon what type of case that they're going forward with, whether the consultation would be free and whether they qualify for some form of future work. But again, you will be told before you even have the consultation booked or scheduled whether it will be free or whether it will be at some fee. And usually if it's at a fee, it's usually a nominal fee, less than what our normal charges would be. But most of the time, if there is a fee associated with the consultation, it's no more than $100.
Okay, that's very good information to know. Now, why don't you go ahead and give the number now, or the best way in which to contact your firm, and we'll repeat it again in just a few minutes.
Well, our toll-free number is 1-888-834-2692. Again, that's a toll-free number, 1-888-834-2692. And when somebody calls that number, it gives them the options to select up to 3 languages, and your call is routed based upon your language. So we have English, Spanish, and French language services offered at the firm.
From the time a person enters this country, how long does it typically take to become an American citizen for someone who may have very little resources? I'm assuming it would take longer than someone who does have resources.
I think the most lengthy process is actually just getting to the permanent resident stage, and depending on how you are applying for permanent residency, those wait times for our green cards or permanent resident status can vary from, a short amount of time for those sometimes spouses of U.S. citizens to a long period of time to maybe somebody who's applying in as the brother or sister of a U.S. citizen. That can be 10, 12, 13 years or longer sometimes in some of the categories. So the most lengthy time is just getting to the green card. And then generally once you have your permanent residency or your green card, you're usually going to wait either 3 years or 5 years before you're eligible to apply for naturalization. So the immigration process to this country can be quite lengthy for many people.
We've mentioned the application process and the procedures and the legal aspects. There is an emotional side to this. And I'm wondering, first of all, what does a new citizen receive at graduation? And what is it like to be present at a graduation ceremony?
Well, the naturalization oath ceremony is something I think that all Americans should at least attend one, because it's a kind of a moving ceremony. It makes you reflect back on what makes us all Americans and where we come from, and how we bring new people into the fold, and that has been the strength, I think, of this country. The naturalization oath ceremony is usually conducted by a federal judge. Here in Indianapolis, for instance, it's typically conducted at the federal courthouse downtown, so it's a very formal ceremony in which new citizens are welcomed to the nation by taking the oath of allegiance. I think that's a very moving ceremony, and I wish more and more people could attend. Every year here in Indiana, they have some remote ceremonies. Sometimes, like on 4th of July, there's usually a naturalization ceremony that occurs at Conner Prairie, where people are sworn in with the Indianapolis Symphony playing in the background, and that's a great thing to see and experience. But that's basically our process. And
I would imagine that there are similar ceremonies, and I refer to it as a graduation ceremony. You said it's immigration naturalization ceremony. Or is there any formal name for it? Is that pretty much it?
The oath ceremony is what most people refer to it as, is because that's where people are taking the oath of allegiance to become U.S. citizens.
And as I said earlier, I would imagine this is fairly consistent throughout the United States. Your ceremony when you receive your American citizenship is pretty much the same. There may be some different bands playing, a different judge, obviously, but you can expect similar kinds of circumstances no matter where you are in the country. Would that be correct?
Of course, that's correct.
Okay. We're talking with John Broyles, founding partner of Broyles Kight and Ricafort, family law practice and immigration attorneys, on the complex topic of immigration, naturalization, and citizenship in the United States. And how often do these ceremonies take place? And how many, let's just say in the Indianapolis area, how many new citizens would be integrated into the population on a yearly basis?
There is a website on the USCIS, or a portion of the USCIS website, on immigration statistics, and it does break all of this down by, city, geographic region, and state. But I think in Indiana we're probably naturalizing somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 new citizens a year. That does sometimes increase. After 9/11, we saw kind of a peak or a spike in the number of naturalizations that we received, and it does vary.
In my research, I noted that the Indianapolis area, for whatever reason, showed a dearth of citizenship classes. Frequently, in many locales, libraries will offer citizenship classes, and for whatever reason, whether they weren't listed or whether they just aren't as available, there were not that many in the Indianapolis area. But and also my research indicated that in the Phoenix area, for instance, that there were any number of citizenship classes. Whether there are many or few, would you recommend, or do you recommend to your clients to attend any of these citizenship classes?
We do. I think it's the place to go, particularly if you have to work on your English language proficiency, any skills there. In areas where there are greater immigrant populations, you tend to find more of these sorts of classes, and I know the government has some programs to try to increase the number of opportunities for people to obtain assistance so that they can naturalize and be integrated, but we always need more.
What's the best part of your job, John?
Welcoming somebody into the United States, whether that be through them obtaining a non-immigrant immigration benefit to them getting their green card and eventually citizenship. Some of my clients have, I would say the vast majority have been my clients for almost my entire legal career. I still celebrate the Ramadan celebration with one of my first clients. When Ramadan breaks, they have a big feast. We still do that every year, and he's been my client now for 14 years.
Wow.
And so, and it's exposed not only myself, but my family, my children, to different cultures, different ways of doing things, and I just think that's invaluable, and I think that's what makes us Americans. How
does an interested person contact you for enrollment information, and how long does it typically take to get started? So we want to repeat the phone number, and if you would slowly repeat the name of your law firm, whether they live in Washington State or South Florida, Maine, or Southern California. What is the number to call? The number again is 1-888-834-2692. Just dial that number. Somebody will be here to answer your call between the hours of 8:30 and 5. If you call after hours and it's an emergency, we do have an emergency routing system. If somebody faced an urgent need, generally if you call between Eastern Standard Time, between 8:30 and 5, we'll always have somebody to answer your call. The firm, again, is Broyles Kight and Ricafort. We focus our practice primarily on immigration law. Been doing it for about going into our 14th year, and we'd love to hear from you. What about a website, John? We can be found on the Internet at www.bkrlaw.com. That's BKRLAW.com. All right. Thank you very much. You have been very good at communicating the necessary steps to become an American citizen, and I hope for those that are interested that you've cleared up some of the issues. The best place to go is the number that you just heard, and we appreciate your time, your expertise, and your willingness to share this very much needed information to not only the residents of all of these various counties that we mentioned, but also our listeners in these metropolitan areas. Thank you very much, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our appreciation to John Broyles of Broyles, Kight and Ricafort, family law practice and immigration attorneys, for his willingness to discuss the complex topic of immigration and naturalization. I'm Kenny Noble Cortez. Thanks for listening.
We now return to the Air One radio network with programming already in progress.